To introduce our special guest, please welcome the president of Northeastern Illinois University, Dr. Sharon K. Haas.
Good evening, everyone. There is a tradition for best friends of Northeastern to answer me back. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much. We're so happy to have all of you here. It is my honor and it is my pleasure this evening to introduce to you Reza Degati. He is, of course, a world-famous photographer, a photojournalist, and he has covered most of the globe for National Geographic magazine. He has received many, many honors. Among those are the Chevalier du Ordre National du Mérite, France's highest civil honor, also the Prince of Asturias Humanitarian Medal, the Honor Medal from the University of Missouri-Columbia School of Journalism, and an Emmy for a television production of his work. Reza is the founder of AINA, which means the mirror. It is an international nonprofit organization dedicated to the education and empowerment of children and women through the use of media and communication. His aim is for them to develop skills that can contribute to the building of a free and open society by supporting sustainable development, promoting human rights, and strengthening national unity. And I would tell you that Reza's goals and his work very much exemplify the values of Northeastern Illinois University, and that is part of why we are so honored to have him with us this evening. Reza is the author of not one, not 5, not 10, 16 books. These 16 books include War and Peace, the first book in the National Geographic Masters of Photography series, and his latest one is Sinbad, which is about the 7 trips of Sinbad, the mystical character from 1001 Nights. Reza's current projects include leading a workshop in Ethiopia, a joint project with UNICEF and Sony World Photography, and teaching 100 young Sicilian people in the area of Catania. He has recently returned from Egypt, where he covered the story of Mubarak and the people in Tahrir Square. We are delighted to have Reza as part of the presidential lecture series to share his thoughts on the power of image for social change. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Reza.
Ladies and gentlemen, Khanim Aghayan and Madame la Présidente, thank you very much for this opportunity given to me for the second time coming here in your university and continuing this relation which I had to decide between Libya and North Illinois, and finally I decided to come here. There are, I think that in everybody's life there are moments and meetings that it's important to hold it, and this is one of them for me. First of all, my very good friend, Dr. Hamid Akbari, very kind and always what he's doing for the humanity, what he's doing for Iran and democracy. It's more and much behind all the university and behind what he's doing. And I can say, because of my relation with all the countries and travel I'm doing, that what he's doing and what the university is doing for the democracy, it is very important, and I support it, and I will congratulate you, and I would like really you to continue doing this. Thanks again for that. power of image for the social changes. It's a story which is part of the human culture. The first images that we do remember, and we have found it, it's back to 43,000 years in some caves in the South France, near the Spain and the France. These are the first images that the human they started making, showing their ability, explaining their lives. And it was going on. It has never stopped from the 43,000 years ago till now, the use of the images to relation with the society, to relation with the humanity. It's part of the whole human history. If we come from this 43,000 years up, what we find is all these rock engravings back to 15,000, 20,000 all over the world. We find that human they started engraving on the rocks. Then comes hieroglyphs, one of the second alphabet of the writings. It is the images. It's the image used to write it. Then we find all over the pharaoh times the image depicting the whole life of everybody's. That's thanks to those images that now we can understand how the life was at those times. And it's keep continuing, coming more and more and becoming more and more involved in the whole human society. The photography, the invention of photography was one of the highlight of this. It was the same things that was the invention of the printings. The difference is that the photography, it's 99% an universal language. It's the language that we need in 21st century to have it, because it is in 21st century that humanity and human start really going together. And then, because of this, because the society, the history movement is in this way, we needed to find a common languages. We found it is photography, is image. We are talking with images. Then we needed to find the way to connect those people with the images, and we find it. We called it internet, we called it Twitter, we called it Facebook, we called it whatever you know about it. All of them are part of this evolution of the history, the evolution of the humanity toward the perfection, toward the way that we will not have dictators, we will not have people deciding for the peoples. This is the onward, this is ongoing. And I can see it, I can feel it, the way which is continuing. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Cairo. When the events happened, I was working in Egypt for more than 20 years. And then I went there. I went and I spent the last 12 days of the Mubarak on the Tahrir Square, day and night, staying with the people. And the Egyptian people are very intelligent, and I can say that one of the nation that in the whole world, in all my travels I have seen, that they have captured the essence of the humanity, the essence of the how to do the things. And most of those days and nights, even if there were 300 people were killed and thousands or more were wounded and they were surrounded, but they never stopped singing and dancing. They did this revolution by singing and dancing and by joking. And one of that I do remember, which is related to our talks, was they were saying that, it's the day of the resurrection. There's in many of the religions, in many of the belief people, they say that the day will come that everybody will come back on the lives, and it's the day of the judgment, we call it. And they were saying that the day of the judgment, there is a special rule for all the Egyptian pharaohs sitting after each other and talking to each other, waiting the times to come for them. And one by one, they are explaining what's happened to them, because all these pharaohs, they were killed or assassinated. And the joke was saying that the Ramses telling to others that, you know, I was walking on my palace and suddenly someone hit me in the back and then I was assassinated. I was killed like this. And Akhenaten saying that, oh, I was poisoned. They invited me for a dinner and then they put some poison, that's how I was killed. And it's going on, and finally Mubarak is sitting between them, and they ask, how you were killed? He said, I was killed by Facebook. And I think this is the reality of what's happening in the world now. It's a reality that we will talk later about it. But anyway, to start showing some pictures, I thought starting with a very short film, which I do films also. I do documentaries, I do short films, long documentaries, and I have put a few hundreds of my photographs over 30 years. It's few hundred, so it's very fast. In a 7-minute film, which I have called it In the Eye of the Storm. That's where I have been. I think that's where I have been in the past 30 years. And I would like to make a statement, visual statement, of what I have seen in the world and why I think that it's happening, all those things. So we will start first with this 7-minute film, which is In the Eye of the Storm, and then I will show more pictures and probably more films. Please go for the films.
Have you ever tried to take on the strange and enriching journey that consists in transposing yourself in somebody else's mind, body, and life? Listen to the story behind these photographs. I can still hear the unbearable torture of mourning in their wailings. Hell is on the other side. Life shows the road to whomever knows how to see, like the mysterious invitation. Come.
out where your enemy is, get at him as soon as you can, strike him as hard as you can and as often as you can, and keep moving on.
We, civilians from here or elsewhere, are the victims of issues that are beyond our understanding. Every moment, your house, your country, your story are within you. Let them cry. Wherever you are, they will follow you.
Now it's time for exodus. В 2006 году более 6 миллионов людей stateless people, aucune destination, sans aucun avenir, and only one goal, survival.
We want one thing. We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.
I can still hear the childlike laughter resonating like a hint of irony in the bitter memory of those many destinies shattered by war and injustice. It is impossible to remain a spectator.
The reason I wanted to start with this, it was, first of all, a visual story of the 30 years I have been and what I have seen, and also showing the pictures and images that you remember, that you have seen the events, and seeing how important sometimes the images will convey the messages. And the last phrase, that was, it is impossible to remain a spectator. That's what I believe is the reality of all of us, of all the human, that when we are touched with some things, we are not anymore the people that we have before, and it's impossible to remain a spectator. That is the real motivation which I have. These are the stories of the people, which I'm going to share some of those stories with you. The story of the people which I met, and I never say that I photographed them. The relation which I have with those people, it's behind the photography. It's behind just taking picture. It's a moment of some grace that the people, for some reason, they opened their hearts, they opened their souls, and they gave me these pictures. I'm there only with my tool just to take it, but it's the whole process before reaching this moment and why that is make those pictures part of the what I'm going to show. This little girl, an Afghan girl, for example, she presents millions of the other children that have burned in the war zones, in the conflict zone, and is still continuing. She is from the village, which everybody knows, very infamous village, which is called Tora Bora village. This is where it was believed that bin Laden and his team were living. And this is the village which has the most incredible bombardment in the whole history of Afghanistan has. Even if all the bombardment was happening when everybody knew that bin Laden has left. But the village was bombarded when she was like 1 month old. And this is 5 years old girl, and you can see in her eyes everything, all the trauma of the. This is the main things that happen in all the wars, the trauma, which remain for whole life. And that's what I believe that one of the main works that we all have to do is to find a way to deal with this trauma of the population, of the whole population and the people. Now, many people ask me, how do I live with all I have seen in the world? And my answer is always two. The first is that with all I have seen, and I'm seeing it still, with all the cruelty of the humanity, of the brutality, but I am very, very optimistic about the future of the humanity. I think that everything is in a movement for a better world, better humanity. And the second way which I keep my soul being polished is by the Persian poetry. I always and always read poetries, and every day I read the poetries. And one of the very poets which I read a lot is Rumi. And this is one of that I like it, which is said, I said, what about my eyes? Keep them on the road. I said, what about my passion? Keep it burning. I said, what about my heart? Tell me what you hold inside it. I said, pain and sorrow. And he said, stay with it. It's a, I mean, I know that you know Rumi and you know how his poetry and philosophy is important. Now, one of my photographs, which I have taken in the Iranian border, this was 12 years after I have left Iran, which I was doing a story for National Geographic and Turkey, and I wanted to return back and to go near the Iranian border and to see the Iran. This was the time that I arrived in the city of Dogu Bayazid, and it says also about the image, it's the reality, it's the power of image, we call it. It's the whole story on it. The reason that I choose these pictures, part of the explaining the tonight's story. The little story behind the picture is that when I arrived in the Dogu Bayazid airport and I talked to a driver saying that I'm going to stay 4 days here, all around working, and I'm a photographer, so would you like work for hire? And he accepted. And I said that I will ask you to stop, and then if I saw some pictures to take it, so be careful. And when I said stop, please stop, because that's where I work. I don't stage pictures. When I see some things, if I'm ready and I take it, it's good. If I wasn't able to take it, bad for me, but I never stage picture. I never ask all them back together and put together. So here we are, just half an hour left the airport, going to the Iran border and turning to the left. suddenly I saw these two little boys coming and bringing an empty TV, which was just, for me as a visual person, was just unbelievable, and I wanted to get these pictures. But by the time I was explaining to the taxi driver, please could you stop? And he was just going, and I said, please stop. And he was going on. So I had very hardly to like wake him up. Said, I told you stop. And then he was just getting a shock, and he braked. I jumped out of the car, like the four pictures, and I was happy. I came back, and the driver was looking to me. He said, "Sir, that's how you are going to take all your pictures in the 4 days?" I said, "No." But the most incredible thing was that for the whole 4 days, he was driving and he was looking around, and every time he was seeing something, "Do you want me to stop?" No, you go. No, why it's this way going? All right. Another one of my photograph that Mike, could you see if you can make it? I think that the picture is stretched somehow. Could you check to see if you can put it not to being stretched? This is in Afghanistan in 1985, which when the Russians were in Afghanistan, I have been spending a lot of times there. It was a time I was working for Time magazine and Life, and spent months and years being in Afghanistan, traveling on foot, obviously, or on the horseback, because the Russians, they were not giving any permission for photographers to go. This is in a part of Afghanistan which is called Nuristan. Another pictures of those times, again, symbolic, which with one picture, it's explaining the whole shadow fighters of the Mujahideen that were fighting the Russian. Who were there? They were peasants. They were people that they didn't want their country being occupied. And this was the guns they had. This is what they had. And these are the times that I was going on the border, finding some of the groups that they wanted to go and take me, and I was disguising like this, putting the same clothes and going on the mountains. This was a time that once you enter the mountains, there were no connection. It's so strange for me to see that it was just like yesterday that we were working in places that there were no connection with the world. Now it is not possible. Now everywhere you go, you have phone and satellites and everything is, there's no more possibility in the world now. Places that you can go and you're totally disconnected. Then Afghanistan is still a few pictures more in Afghanistan. That this is the whole school, the girls' school for the girls, in the North Afghanistan. When I show this picture, which is in Afghanistan, but I do believe that you all thought the same things. The first things people looked at and said, "Oh, it looks like Joseph and Mary on Egypt, going to Egypt." But it's taking in Afghanistan, and the winter, and the snow. So these are the image connection which exists. This is the cultural connection of the images. That it can be refugees in Afghanistan. I still need to talk to the mic or Elaine to say if the pictures could be, because they're a little stretched, and I think that you have to make them. When we did the afternoon, it was working. How long will it take? No? You think that we keep going like this? Okay. One of the things that's happening a lot in Afghanistan is this famous buzkashi, and this is, you know, it's a huge sport, like hundreds of the people on the horseback. And it's one of the very old sport which is started. We have the same that has called polo, which was invented in Iran, was played in Iran. Then this is a part of the Central Asian. But these are the images that after I looked at these pictures, and I was thinking that there's something strange in this picture, which I was not able to find out. And it happened like a few years after. The horse in the middle. I'm an architect. I study architectures, and when I was studying architectures in Tehran University, one of our teachers, he was really in love with the Picasso, and that's how he passed the love to us, to the Picasso. And between Picasso's works, the Guernica is one that I loved it, and I had in my room when I was students. That's how the visual connections happen. Then I looked at it and I matched it. It's exactly the horse head matching the one in Picasso. But I mean, this was taken, you can imagine, in the middle of the whole things going on. You don't think about it. But that's how the visual connection happened. That's how I think that the image can convey the messages that people, they don't know about it, but it goes there. Portrait of Masood. He's the man which I respected more between all the different careers I met. He is the man that he was a civil engineer, and when his country was invaded by Russian, he said, "I don't want my country to be invaded." And he takes guns. He had, like, in the starting were him and the 4 of his friends. And they got this little guns in the villages, which was for the huntings. That's how he started. Fighting with whom? Fighting with the Russian army in 1981. Russian army, you do remember how important was it? How all the wars, US, Europe, and China, and all the world, when they were hearing about the Russian army or Soviet army, they were all shaken. They were afraid. This was the biggest army in the world. And this man, in his 30s, saying, "No, I don't care. I'm going to fight them." And that's how I started. And I met him, this was in 1985, and after 3 months on the mountains. But the picture, that's how come again. The picture has become the symbol of the Afghan resistance. The picture is all over Afghanistan. The picture was used when he was assassinated to keep fighting back Taliban with his pictures, all his friends, all his soldiers, everybody has one of these pictures. This is how the pictures make, that's how the power of images we're talking about it. Last year, National Geographic Channel, they made a 1-hour documentary only in the power of this image, how the images can bring change. And this is one of the 12 images that National Geographic has chosen to make a series of the 12 films about it. He was assassinated 2 days before 9/11, and his assassination was the part of the whole plot. Again, with the 9/11 and his assassination, they were all connected to each other. Still nobody knows all these stories, how it's happened. Still nobody knows why he was assassinated, what was the relation, what was the connection to 9/11. But something is important to know, that he and the Afghans are part of the main power that bring the Berlin Wall down. These are the people that fight the biggest army in the world, the Russian army, and they bring it down. They bring the Berlin Wall, they bring the Soviet Union down. They are the one that did it. After the Russian army, they were defeated. The last Russian soldier left Afghanistan on 15 February 1989, 10 months after the Berlin Wall came down, just 10 months. And now, this is the recent works, which I'm ongoing project. I'm working on the US Army and all the others, and NATO, and ongoing war in Afghanistan. So I spend the times with the soldiers, trying to understand them, trying to find who they are, why they are there. Do they know why they are there? This is the important question. And unfortunately, many of them, they don't know why they are. Many of them, they don't know where they are. You cannot believe. Many of them, they don't know where they are and why they are. For people who knows the relation between a praying house, doesn't matter the religion, doesn't matter if you are religion or not, doesn't matter if you believe a religion or not, but we all know that in religion there are places that is respected, and there are rules. And when you see this picture, actually this was published in National Geographic magazine, 2 pages about it. When you see these pictures, you see the cultural shocks. You see why you cannot walk with the shoes in many of the religious places. You cannot do different things in many of the religious. I said you could be athei, you could not believe to the religion, you can be from another religion, but if you don't respect the cultures, if you don't respect the tradition, then you are the loser. Now, this is inside a camp in the Pashtun lands. We're talking about the culture. And those people that living there, the one which we call Taliban now, or the Pashtun people, and whoever they have studied them, they know that they are very, very, very traditional tribes. We can be against them because they are traditional. They are traditional. We have to respect their tradition and continue working with them somehow. Just to tell you a story how traditional they are, and it is, I'm not judging them, I'm just telling the story that There was an NGO who wanted to bring electricity in those villages. Bring electricity to the villages. We all think that this is fantastic. Everybody will love to have it. And they have gone to the people and talked to them, saying that we want to bring the electricity. And they have shown what the electricity could bring to them, and they have accepted. But the day that they have decided to bring and install their electricity, suddenly they find